Alright guys, RC Mojo here with some more RC goodness. Since last week's video was a bit short, I thought we would do a bit of a build. So here we have a Cross RC 1/10 scale semi-scale trailer model. You'll have to excuse the grubby fingers as I'm still finishing up with my full-size toy. Anyway, inside the box, first up is the manual, which has pretty much no English at all. The part numbers and the diagrams give a good enough idea of the construction though. If you've ever put together an Airfix kit, you should have no problems at all. Further in, we have some steel 1.55 beadlocks. The quality looks pretty good. Some Cross RC brand tyres. The rubber is a bit hard, but it's on a trailer so it won't matter much. A big bag full of screws and other assorted goodies. A bag of steel leaf springs. They look a lot like the Tamiya lorry ones. A rather nice aluminium axle, fully ball raced, and each wheel can spin independently. A small bag of plastic bits and a big bag of plastic bits. Right, in the manual there's some pics of little glue pots that have ABS printed on them. So it seems likely that the plastic is ABS. If it is, the best stuff to use to put this together will be plasti-weld. This stuff has the consistency of water and will melt the plastic on contact, so as the name suggests, welding the plastic parts together. To make sure, we'll grab the floor of the trailer, which has some nice machine ridges on the inside, flip it over and put a drop of the plasti-weld on. A pair of pinch tweezers makes a good tool to get the stuff where you want it. Just a tiny amount to test, and yep, the plastic has gone soft, so we're good to go. Let's lay out the plastic bits and see what we get. Quite a lot as it happens. This should be fun. If you've watched one of our builds before, you'll be aware we don't always follow the instructions, and this is no exception. We're going to skip to step 3 as I want to do test fits of the other parts before sticking them together, as I can't do that until the bulk of the trailer is built. Right, so we need 2 side panels, the 2 wheel arch tops and the 4 wheel arch ends. The end bits have one edge beveled and the top bits has both ends beveled, so make really sure you get them the right way round. The arch parts slot into the grooves machined into the side panels. The grooves are just a little bit on the big side, so they won't stand up on their own. Seen worse though. This is almost a luxury. Pop the bits in roughly the right place and put a couple of drops of plasti-weld on the top. This will soften the plastic and create the weld. It will stay soft for quite a while, but should have a good grab after 10 seconds or so. When you can feel it grabbing, move on to the end bits. Put a drop on the inside corner. It will run down, melting the plastic. Hold it for a few seconds and repeat at the other end. Now put a drop on the very ends. They need to be left for a few minutes to harden up so we don't knock the arches. Okay, sometime later the arch caps go on. A couple of drops of plasti-weld on the edge of the arches and lay the cap on as close to the right position as you can. Wait a couple of seconds for the plastic to start to melt, then move them into the exact position. And of course, you'll need to let them harden up before you disturb them, so clock wipe. Step 4. The sides, front and back get attached to the floor. There aren't any nice self-jigging parts here, so it can be a little tricky. First the sides need to go on. They are the same length as the floor, so line one up on the side, making sure the ends are in line with the floor. When you're happy with the test fit, put a couple of drops of plasti-weld on the bottom of the side panel and lightly press it into place. Hold it for a good 30 seconds so the weld will support the panel. Also worth noting, you should be careful not to do this on a plastic topped table, as you'll end up with a trailer permanently attached. If you're worried, a layer of aluminium foil makes a good barrier. The other side goes on in just the same way, then we can move on to the end panels. The end of the floor with the 4 holes is the front, so the panel with the 4 holes goes at that end. And the panel with the 2 light holes goes at the other. Both need the machine grooves to the outside. Just as before, a few drops of plasti-weld and gently press them into place. Give them a few minutes to harden, and we can run a little bit of extra plasti-weld into the corners to make sure they are completely solid. Not strictly necessary, as the plasti-weld should wick along the joins by itself, but it won't hurt to make sure. The side strips go on now. You could do the angled panels first, but I want to make sure the strips are nice and even at the top of the end panels. Put a drop of plasti-weld on one of the ends and hold it in place for about 30 seconds. Then carefully support the other end and put a drop there. Hold it in place for a good few seconds. Now grab one of the angled panels and do a test fit. The beveled edge goes towards the side panel with the machined grooves up. When you're happy, pop it out, put a couple of drops of plasti-weld on the side panel and refit. It should be a snug fit, so it will hold its position on its own. When it's all lined up, put an extra couple of drops on the side. Surprise, surprise, you need to do the other side too. This is another good time to run some extra plasti-weld around the joins to make sure it's fully welded. Okay, step 5. Not sure what they are, but there's 4 widgets that get fitted to the corners. There are slots machined into the end panels, so just put a drop of plasti-weld into the slot and press the widgets in. Do all 4 and we can move on to the end strips. These were the only parts not to be a perfect fit. I had to trim a tiny amount off the ends. Nothing a couple of passes on some sandpaper won't fix, so no worries. When they test fit okay, put a couple of drops of plasti-weld on the back and press it into place. Same on the other end. Nice. Now for the light cover mounting block. It slots into a machined pocket on the floor, so you can't position it wrong. Just pop a little bit of plasti-weld into the pocket and up the end plate and pop it in place. Simple. This is another good time to run some extra plasti-weld around the joins. Then leave it for a good 10 minutes to harden up. Back to step 2. After a successful test fit, the light cover will work just fine. So the 2 parts need to get welded together. Check the instructions carefully to get the joint right. This will need a while to harden, as what we don't want to do is try and fit it while the plasti-weld is still active. Step 6 now, and it's the frame rails. There are some grooves machined into the floor, but they are just slightly oversized and the grooves only fit the little tab parts. The main rails don't have anything to locate on. The easiest way to make sure everything lines up perfectly is to bolt the tabs onto the rails. So open up the screws bag and fish out the M3x16s and some nuts. Fit the tabs onto the rails, do the screws up, not tight, just snug, and we want to be able to move the tabs around a little. I'm using some plain nuts from my stash, but you can use the nylocks that come with the kit. It'll just take a bit more effort. Make sure you make up one left and one right rail, as I managed to make up a matching pair. Whoops. Right, the rails go towards the outside of the trailer with the double screwed end towards the front. Pop the tabs into the slots and make sure they are nicely level. When you're completely happy with the alignment, pop a couple of drops of plasti-weld on. The other side is a mirror image, so easy enough. Give it a good 10 minutes to harden up and remove the screws. Now you can go around the joins with some extra plasti-weld to make sure the rails are fully attached to the floor, as we wouldn't want them coming adrift. Before we put the plasti-weld away, we might as well do step 1. The square part goes over the end of the A-frame. Looks like it's purely there to reinforce the hole on the end. Makes sense. Pop the bits together and drop on some plasti-weld. That's it for the tricky stuff. The rest is more traditional RC truck assembly. We'll start with the beadlock wheels, which will be familiar if you watch our CCA1 videos. It's a very similar setup. The tyres are cross RC branded on the tyre wall, but the other side is blank, so you can choose if you want the branding on show. Very nice. The tyres have foams in too, extremely firm foams. Should be alright for a trailer though. To put them together we'll also need the plastic bosses, the bag of M2 screws and the bag of M2 nuts. Right, start by pressing the ring into the tyre. As the rubber is quite stiff and the foam very firm, it's a bit of a struggle, but it will go in. Don't give up. Now grab the steel bits and insert into the tyre. Make sure the 2 halves line up, as the outer holes aren't in line with the screw holes. Pop the boss on the back and keep hold of the whole lot and insert a screw from the back. Give it all a good squeeze and fit a nut. Do it up a couple of turns, just enough so it doesn't drop out. Next, insert another screw into the opposite hole and fit a nut. The last few screws go in quite easily. Get them all in and the nut started. Now we need to tighten them up in the good old cross pattern, as our nice little animation demonstrates. Well, kinda. I'm sure you get the idea though. We want the two halves of the wheel to come together evenly, so do the screws up a bit at a time until they're all nice and tight. When done, you should have a nice looking wheel, like so. And if you enjoyed that, you will be glad to know there's another one to do, which, due to editing, is really quick. Yeah. Axle now, which comes pre-assembled, so that was easy. Just need to attach the leaf springs. Now I reckon the main leaves on their own will be enough to support the trailer, so I'm going to try it without the shorter ones. If it's not enough, they're easy enough to add later. The axle is the same top and bottom, so with a couple of the M3x16 screws and nylock nuts we can attach the spring to the axle. I'm also using some washers. They're not included in the kit, but if you have a bag it will be worth using them. Do the screws up so they're just snug. There's no need to do them up super tight, just enough so the spring doesn't move around on the axle. Now for the shackles. They fit with a large shoulder screw and again some nylock nuts. One end gets the straight shackle, the other end gets the two triangle parts for the fixed end. The nuts get done up so they're just bottomed out. You should end up with a rig that looks something like this. Final assembly time. More M3x16 screws and nylocks, and if you have some washers. If you offer up the axle to the trailer you can quite easily see what goes where. Run a screw through each of the hole with the head towards the outside of the trailer with a nylock nut on the inside. The fixed end can be done up nice and snug, but the floating end needs to be free to swing around, which highlights the only real issue with the kit. The frame rail is wider than the shoulder screw, which pinches the shackle, making it bind. I'm thinking about making a brass sleeve the right width and using a normal screw. Not sure how I'm going to tackle it, but we'll come up with something. Right, A-frame. Screw the M3x20 grub screw into the eyelet, screw it in about halfway, then thread it into the A-frame. This will probably need some glue, but it's best to do that after it's painted. It gets attached to the trailer with yet more M3x16s and nylocks. Of course, if you have them, use some washers too. Do the screws up so they're just nice and snug. This bit will be familiar to anyone who's built up a car. You need to install a pin and hex on the ends of the axle, drop on a wheel and fit an M4 nut. Just snug, don't need to go silly. Last part, the light lenses go in. They need some glue, but not yet, as of course we still need to paint it. The light cover just lines up on the mounting block and is held in with the M3x10. I'm using a washer purely so it looks the same as all the other fixings. So yeah, that's about it. Done. At least the build is. It still needs some paint. The question is, what colour? Post in the comments if you have any ideas. I'm thinking a solid colour to keep things simple. Gloss always appeals, but olive drab has a certain something. Ideas please. Well, that's it for another video. Hope you enjoyed. I did. Been a while since I built something like this. Made a nice change from the usual RC bolt-ons. If you did like it, you can hit that like button to let us know. If you're not already, you can subscribe to get told when we upload videos. Very useful. Thanks for watching. Bye.